And I'm here now with Mica Mosbacher. Her husband was the Commerce Secretary under President Bush. Now, Mica, can you tell me, please, you told me the first memory of meeting the president. Tell me what your thoughts were when you met him.
I first met President Bush when I was a volunteer in his then vice presidential office in Houston, Texas. And I was in the volunteer room when President Bush came bounding in, and he walked up to me and he said, "Who is this?" "I'm George Bush," and gave me a penetrating look. And I was immediately struck with his incredible kindness and inherent decency, and the fact that he was able to make me, a mere volunteer, feel special. And as I got to know him over a period of time, I eventually worked as a press secretary in his advance office. When he ran for president, I observed that he treated old people consistently, whether they were an individual serving in a diner or whether they were a head of state.
Tell me a little bit more about his personality. In the tributes recently, we've heard of his sense of humor, his love for his wife. Tell me any anecdotes you remember about his sense of humor, his welcoming, warm personality.
Well, one of my favorite memories is visiting the President and Mrs. Bush at Walker's Point in Kennebunkport, Maine. And President Bush greeted our car and carried my bags to our room, which was tremendously interesting because the Secret Service didn't do a thing. You know, he was really very kind and wanted other people to feel welcome. He then said, "Hey, let's hop on Fidelity," which was his speedboat. And he went flat out on Fidelity. And I remember being thrown against the back seat, and the Secret Service was having trouble keeping up with him. And then he started laughing, and I really saw his kind of wicked sense of humor. I saw a very poignant person as well, a man who had the highest standards of character and principles. And later on, I saw once again his decency and compassion when my husband, former Secretary of Commerce, Robert Mosbacher, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. George Bush often gave me a phone call to buck me up. He came bounding into Bob's hospital room with the latest joke and entertained nurses with his stories. He was just really an individual that connected with people. And I think the spirit that we're seeing today, a bipartisanship, leaving politics at home, the fact that President Trump was included in the funeral and gave such a heartfelt tribute in one of his tweets, I think is how President Bush would want to be remembered, as being a uniter, not a divider.